Okay. So, hi, Jaime. Thank you so much for joining me today. As we were just discussing, this is such a privilege to be able to talk to all inspirational people that I've been meeting through the last 1 year, and as I expand to many other groups also, I will say that at the heart of all these conversations is our cohort. I feel that we were 60 people, and each one with their own truly inspirational story to tell. And because you were the quietest of the class, I wanted to have this conversation with you in the first go. Even though you were quiet, you were very inspiring just by your presence as well, the conversations we had, the insights that you ended up sharing, and of course the questions that we ask during our sessions, that also speaks a lot of where our entire thought process is coming from. So I would love for everyone to know about you through you. So introduce yourself to me, your journey, where you are at, what you do, for all the
Well,
people who
that's
are
a
listening.
really broad question. And first of all, thanks for thinking about me to be part of this endeavor you're building up. And yeah, you're right. I'm usually known for not speaking too much, um, taking the ideas to myself, and instead trying and uh, to know people and hear them and uh, pay attention to small details and that allow me to better understand some sort of, I don't know, um, how the world moves around. I don't know if that makes any
Yeah.
sense. So yeah, basically I'm just a normal guy. I'm Colombian. I was born in Barranquilla, um, a medium-sized city in Colombia. Um, Average childhood. Um, one sister. Then I have another half sister because my parents divorced and they both ended up marrying again. When I got out of high school, I came to live to Bogota for college. I'm an engineer, and eventually I worked in the financial industry, like consultant, investment banking, and ended up building a e-waste recycling facility, or as I like to frame it recently, and trying to do it forward as a vision of business. I'm in the urban mining business. I'm married, I have two kids, and that's it. That's the broad picture.
Yeah, and that's a lot of very interesting things, and especially the way you talk about how you started and how you've ended working in a place where, which I feel as an industry is very critical for the way everybody says today, saving the planet, right? So tell me a little about, usually I would talk a little more about other things, but tell me about how you ended up with this passion and how you ended up, kind of creating this, finding a purpose in a cause like this, building a business case around it and taking it to the world.
I like to say it was like an enlightening moment, but far from that. I was at a moment in my life where I was like so into the job, a consulting job. I was traveling all around, working 24/7. My oldest son had a couple of months, and I was trying to make a career shift, and my initial previous business partner, called me. He was um they are involved in plastics. It was a US company, and he called me and told me about this opportunity that he had seen because of some conversations about um, how the law was moving towards a more um, rigorous type of approach to handling e-scrap. I had no idea about e-scrap or anything of this business. And I was so desperate and trying to, I think my main goal was to build something that could last, build something that had impact. And I thought it could, maybe that was the way. Um, so I got into it knowing nothing about it. And once I was in, I was like, what did I do? How did I got into this? Because unfortunately, I don't know if unfortunately or fortunately, this is a type of business that it's really dominated and historically it's been around informal activities and sadly illegal activities. So once I realized all these problems surrounding this type of business, I was really afraid. Uh, but at the same time, I guess I was challenged because I was like, oh, I got into this and I'm gonna build something really different around this, and I'm gonna try and um, make impact. Uh,
Yes.
so, so that was 13 years ago, and here I am.
That is amazing. So, talk to me a little more about that person who looked at it, felt the fear, started to observe it as a challenge, and then, built it to the story that you have as, as somebody who's successful, who knows what he's doing now. Because a lot of people, like if I am to step into the new ventures of entrepreneurship or, finding my purpose, trying to deliver impact, usually it starts as a lonely process despite the friends or people that you might have, because there's a lot of sense of I already have built so much, what about risking it all, and how would it look like if I end up losing it, instead of being able to make sense of what I'm the direction I'm trying to get to. So how did you mitigate that process? How did you kind of lead yourself through it? Who did you rely on in terms of support if you didn't need any? Talk to me a little about that.
Uh, it wasn't easy because yeah, you're trying to build something that's that hasn't been built the way you want it to be built. Um, and there were challenging times because, as I told you, my oldest son had just born. Um, we were we really struggled, my wife and I. Uh, and at some time, she always remembers this because we were. I don't want to say we didn't have enough to have a decent life, but we struggled. And I remember this one time we were discussing about to pay the kindergarten tuition and groceries
Yeah.
and whatever, and we were concerned, and she was like, Give it up, find a job. Um, it's too difficult." And one question you made, did you rely on? Um, I've done this by myself. I haven't had support from anyone uh, aside from my wife, and of course the support of my parents. Like, yeah,
Yes.
we're
Yeah.
proud of you. Go
Yeah.
ahead. We have your back. But at the end, it's been uh, a lonely race, if you could say it like that. And and to be honest, even though that moment of doubt and frustration that me and my wife had, she's been the whole support, the whole. Uh, uh, I even get emotional about it because she's been my rock.
And I can see that. And I've met her, and she seems to be a woman of, confidence and grit and support as well. So for sure, that must have manifested that way. And I completely hear you, because as a family, when you're trying to make strides into doing something which is worth the impact, it's always a question, especially by the closest people. why do you want to give up the comfort of what you have in order to go and do something which, yes, may be good for the world but may not be good for you in this moment of time, and who knows whether this will be successful or not. How did you find the confidence to stay with it? And if there were three key things that you think that, looking back, probably were the mantras that you stuck to, what would that be?
Stubbornness.
Yeah.
Stubbornness. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm really
stubbornness. Yeah.
stubborn. Yeah, and some kind of sense that um, there should be a reward if you do the things the right way.
Yes.
And I was absolutely, and I am absolutely convinced I'm doing things the right way. I'm building something um, that definitely would help. Um, and for sure, I'm not in this for charity. To be honest, yeah, it's a profit. It's a business. It needs to be profitable. But at the end, what has moved me to do every day things better is that I'm convinced I'm doing something that it's gonna help the people that work with me. It's gonna help the people that indirectly work with me, and it definitely will help um, humankind because
Yes.
the amount of CO2 we're trying to recover. I know it's like a small grain of sand, uh, but at the end, if every and each one of us uh, put together these little grains of sand, there's going to be something worth for worth for it. I don't know. Sorry,
Yeah.
my
No.
I'm thinking in Spanish and trying to translate. I'm sorry.
No, that's
So
that's part of living in a global world. Please don't be sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
no, so I don't know if I actually answered your question. What yeah, the conviction that I'm doing the things the right way, that um, doing things the even if things had been done for most of the years certain way, it doesn't mean it's the right way. So that type of north of and conviction that yeah, I'm doing things the right way, despite the obstacles, despite the um, constraints, despite the criticizing, and that's I don't know. Yeah, does it make sense?
Absolutely, it does. I have heard a lot of people say entrepreneurship is all about stubbornness. You have to stick to what you want, uh, or rather, what you want to create an impact in. My next question around that, I'm very curious to hear even more about this. So, before the larger question, if you could talk to me about your operations currently, is it in Colombia? Is it across the world? Like, what all locations do you have your operations currently in for your business?
Um, we're a local company.
Hmm.
We mostly operate within our territory, Colombian territory. Nationwide, we have operations in Bogota, the capital city, and in Barranquilla, my hometown. Um, but we provide services all around the country to our customers. At the same time, global. We are a global business because, for example, we our main business is to disassemble electronic scrap and try and recover or recycle the most of amount of materials. So unfortunately, we don't have local industry for non-ferrous metals or precious metals, even some plastics. So we need to ship them abroad. So we ship to Asia, we ship to Europe, we ship to the US, depending on the type of materials. So we have customers all over the world and customers in Colombia. So we are like a local business with a global scope. If
Yeah.
you can, that makes sense. Yeah.
It does, it does. And I'm just thinking because today the whole world is operating on electronics. So it indeed is a place where, maybe to my limited knowledge, I don't see a lot of um, companies per se that are working in that field. Am I wrong? Is that industry very mature, or is it still maturing? My mind goes back to the S curves we discussed in class. So enlighten me about the industry a little.
That's that's the thing. It depends on how you want to approach the answer. Uh, I've I'm often asked, "How's your competition? Is it really high?" Or the immediate answer is it's really difficult, the competition, because any guy who drives a car saying, "I'm gonna buy your batteries, I'm gonna buy your computer, I'm gonna all your scrap, I'm gonna buy it," it's a immediate competition for us. The thing is, they don't do the things we do. They don't comply environmentally the way we do. They don't comply with the minimum requirements of health and safety for our employees. So when you take an approach of seeing the business as a responsible business, competition is a little bit smaller. Uh, it's significant because companies, for instance, in Colombia, we have really important companies doing this. Um, but at the same time, and that's my type of, I like to think this way. I'm the one like trying to do things completely different from the others. Um, I'm not inventing the warm water or anything sophisticated, but the approach I'm trying to give to the business is, and that's something I've been focused since I started. I um with some of my competitors, we created this Colombian Association for Electronic Waste Companies. And a couple of years later, we created the Latin American Association for E-waste companies. And we're trying to give it a more uh, responsible approach to how you can actually recycle this type of equipment. You can all over the internet find videos or photos of certain countries in Africa, even here in Colombia. It's really sadly you can see that in many cities, little kids breaking things out, uh, open open flame. What they do, for example, if they want to recover the copper in the wiring, they just torch a fire and burn it this with no concern for the environmental and even health issues it could be represent to
Yeah.
you. So we have a lot of competition, but when seeing it as a responsible activity, it's more or less competition, but it's really um, interesting and always a top-notch type of competition.
Did you always know all this, or did you have to do a lot of self-taught kind of, education as you went through this entire process of building this company up?
I'm learning every day. As I told you, I got into this uh, not necessarily because no one made me do it, but I got like blindsided. I thought it was a complete like I got into this thinking it was a beautiful by standards and everything. Very naive of me, and on the process of building it and understanding it and applying for permits and talking and going there and um hitting hard myself, crashing, and it's been a really painful ride, but at the same time, really invigorating and satisfying type of learning and ride.
That is amazing. I especially wanted to ask this because anybody who would be listening to this, right? And anybody who's listened to just this amount of time that we've been talking, they would get hooked, because there is a lot of inspiration there for people who want to start something new, but they don't know enough about it. There's just an idea that will not let them sleep at night. They want to, just really get into it and start working on it. But as as there is a lot of barrier to entry in terms of, maybe I don't know enough, maybe it's just an idea, maybe it'll get dismissed. I feel it's very important to bring out the highlighting theme here, that you educated yourself through the journey. I think the biggest here is that you just did not give up, because sometimes it keeps evolving. You expect that it'll be simpler, but it is not, and it continues on that path. If you were to kind of share a little bit of wisdom in terms of how to navigate a landscape which you may not be aware of, and you are entering with a mindset that, okay, one, of course, just going on the lines of stubbornness, as you said, how do you create a method to the madness of learning through the process and building a successful business?
Hmm. I thought you would make easy questions. No,
These are all easy questions for you. You've lived it.
no, I don't know if there's a method, but definitely I think it's a blessing to not know about what you're getting into, because it always makes you question things and ask questions as, what if? What if we do it this way? What if? Um, and it's once you think you know enough about the business, maybe you're doing something wrong. You need to always be questioning, and why not, and what would happen if we do this, and always trying to not settle with the status quo about what you know and what you think. Because if I was want to think that after 13 years I'm the master of the knowledge of this industry, I would be doomed. Because I wouldn't be able to keep on learning and trying. That's one of the reasons I decided to go back to school, because I wanted to challenge myself. And when you're always on the daily operation, how am I gonna pay the payroll? How am I gonna, well, do whatever you do on a daily basis? You lose focus and you start just to um, I don't know the exact words in English, but you just start to see the tree rather than the forest.
Yes.
Um, so uh, at that time, I say I need to um, uh, reset and understand there's so much more things to do. And I think my experience with you guys and talking to every one of you and having the Oxford experience um, really boosted me and gave me like more fuel to keep on questioning myself and questioning my business, questioning my people, and where do we want to take this business, not only in Colombia, because when I started, I thought about something in Colombia.
Yeah.
A couple of years later, well, the region, Ecuador, Peru, Colombia. But as I told you, we are a global business, and there are things going on, the whole uh, borders closing.
Yes.
Um, we have this thing in this business that is the, well, in many other business, but it's the Basel Convention that restricts shipment through countries of certain materials. So that makes us refocus on how we are gonna develop alternative industries, um, from what I said. For example, the copper. We don't have a local business for a local industry for copper. How can we manage to build local capabilities, uh, and not always have to ship abroad, and the whole CO2 impact of shipping containers all across the world? And so at the end is always challenge yourself, always think, never uh, feel the sense of comfort as of achieved this, I've built this, I'm on the top. No, always um, not with greed, because
Yes,
you can confuse those terms. It's not, it's ambition, but not greediness.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
It totally makes sense. I also believe that a lot of times, people feel that ambition should be about greed, but ambition without sensitivity and kindness is usually hollow. So you've very well put it that you should be ambitious, but it should have a cause, it should have a reason to it, and you should have a righteous path around it. So, it's interesting to note that you said that you're thinking in Spanish and you're speaking in English. And it happens so that I think today is an international day for, your native languages, your mother tongues. So, that takes me to that, I always feel that our mother tongue often feels like the lap of your mom. That's what my mom told me. That's why it feels so close. It has that warmth. Talk to me about your roots and how that has made you who you are, and this passion that it has given you, because a lot of times what we do in the world today is often rooted in the journey we've had as we were growing up.
Um, well, as I told you, I have one from the marriage. I have one sister, and when my parents remarried, um, my dad had another daughter. Um, but I had a like a really big family. My with uncles, aunts, cousins. So we were really, yeah, really familiar. We met together, went to all houses, and I think one of the main characters in how I see things today, definitely, I need to say, was my both my grandparents, my grandfather from both sides, even though I didn't really met one of them because he died when I was really small. But the stories I heard of him, and both of them, they they came from really down and built businesses and help people, and um, um, I can find the word, they separated, they achieved really big things for some guys. They weren't really, they didn't have the opportunities, and when they died, you can see the how people loved them, how people had gratitude for them, eh, and how they always were about building something. So that kind of framed my yeah, how I wanna what I wanted to do. Of course, I wasn't an entrepreneur since I got out of college. I had several jobs. Um, Really difficult for me to deal with my bosses. Um, so so I understood that, one, for once, um, to obey the chain of command, I wasn't really good at that. Um, but at the end, you always have to have that chain of command. Today, they're my customers. Um, they're my bosses.
Right.
And so going back to my roots, yeah, I think the my grandparents were a really were really important on framing the way I see how I what I want to leave behind. Want to be remembered as someone who did something important to the people that surround me, um, and the discipline of work and stubbornness, and definitely my mom. My mom's a dentist, and her discipline of getting up early, going to work, uh, making us who we are. Um, So yeah, those are, and yeah, and the big family, the loving uncles, aunts, cousins, my dad, how they care for each other, how they're always thinking how to be together. So yeah, I think that's
That is beautiful. And I feel that, when you were talking about big family, I feel that is so much like India. I am from India, and we have that sense of large families. And I feel that the more we travel, the more we get to see the world as more similar than different, right? So let's talk about some perspective of the world you have. You're quite global.
just a little parenthesis. Or
Yes.
I last year I went to India, and it's funny you say it's similar, the family and whatever, and it was really funny because I was meeting this um, a really big buyer of metals in India, and I was gonna meet the CEO. And once I got into his office, he was like, "I thought I was meeting a Colombian, not an Indian." And and it happened to me that everywhere I went, they started to talk to me in Indian, and I was like, "No, I don't understand. I'm sorry. I'm not from here."
Something happened for sure when the world was being created. We all were one people. Then the whole tectonic plate movement drew us apart, but we look alike. I feel that, and yes, that's what I was trying to hint at. The features might still differ in different parts of the world, but the emotion has never traveled so far from the center of what humanity and means and what humans are. So, with my limited experience of travel and a little bit of seeing the world, tell me, how has your perspective been about this? You've been to India, you've been to other places, of course, you've been to UK. Do you feel that there are more differences in the world or more similarities? And do you feel hopeful about the world today, or do you feel that you have some concerns, especially as a father?
Uh, Concerns, definitely lots of concerns with everything that's going on. Um, wars, the incapability of tolerating differences. Um, but to answer your question, I think we're definitely alike everywhere around.
Yes.
Um, we want to we want our family to be okay. We want our kids to be okay. We want to have a good meal. We want to have a decent um, a, a place to to sleep. Uh, that's something that happens all around the world. And what makes and what concerns me is about what I mentioned, the being greedy and trying um, the greedy, being greedy for power and to be the alpha male or whatever with all our leaders today. Um, and it's concerning to see how uh, we're going back in times where by force you want to enforce your point of view and your your religion, your whatever you. It's by force, and it's really sad. It's saddening to see that. Um, but at the end, I like to see always the cup not half empty, but rather but
Full.
half full. So there's I guess we're there more of the of good people rather than bad people, and I think at the end common sense is gonna prevail. That's
Hope.
my hope. Yeah.
And that's probably a solution for the world, that if the good people could come together, if common sense could prevail, then maybe the wars would stop and the beauty of humanity will get emphasized, right? If we had a very positive approach, basis your sense of technology, your sense of industries, what do you feel the world would look like in the next 10 years, 20 years? And what do you feel would be the biggest, like most important innovations that will drive the world forward?
Um, hmm, I don't know. I don't know how to to uh, to approach this. 10 to 20 years. Um, there's gonna. I think definitely there's gonna be some really difficult moments the next 5 years. Uh, Once hopefully we get some sense into some of the global leaders. Um, but I don't think there's going to be much of a change. I think um, aside from the fact that, yeah, information is moving really quickly with all AI and
Yeah.
technology development. I guess we're going to be in the same struggles for land, struggles for religion, for who has the most power over which country has the most power over the other country. I don't. Uh, Hopefully, I'm not wrong. I don't think we're gonna have like well, I don't want to get into politics, but um, yeah, I don't think it's gonna make such a difference the next 10 to 20 years. Um, But what really concerns me the next 10 to 20 years is to um, relieve something like COVID, because
Mm.
I think we haven't really, even though we were really concerned the following months or even a year after everything opened up, um, we didn't really learn um, about how to, when you're feeling down with a sore or cold, how to protect the people around you. So I think we're gonna live through something like that more sooner rather than later. And about what will move the change um, in the next years, definitely the speed in which data is processed and sent, and um, it's incredible. Well,
Yes.
relatively close because
Yes.
we're on a 4 hour flight, but we could
Yes.
do this even if you're all over the other
Anywhere.
end of the world.
Yeah.
So the speed of how data is processed and how data is transferred and how these equipments and computers and processors and everything, it's the speed on which it's been developing. It's um, scary. But
That's
well, I said so much things. I don't know if I hit the the
true.
key of the question.
No, you did. You did. I think there is a lot of fluidity when we think about what might happen, and you're right that data probably might continue to be a big thing. So because it holds all the insight, and if we can draw the right things out of it, in good hands, it can magnanimously change the world. In the wrong hands, it may completely tear the world down. So it's let's take a more positive outlook. I think we've talked a lot about the concerns, right? So, um, despite all of the things that are happening, we are flourishing as well. And if I just, bring the spotlight back to you, you started your journey and you've lived through so much. And in fact, even in the roles of your own life, you're a father, you're a husband, you are a friend, you are a classmate, you're a student as well as a teacher. Maybe you're working with your employees, you're a business owner. You come from a certain part of the world and you're equally global at the same time. So much, right? Out of all these things that have happened parallelly, what do you feel in your life you're most proud of when it comes to yourself?
Um, Having the family I have right now, um, my wife, my kids, and I'm really proud of it. Because at the end, these are two little persons um, that you're building into, trying to build into be better than you.
Yes.
And even though it's really well, my Daniel, my oldest son is 13 and Antonella is 11. They're really small up to now, but I think they're really good kids, and I'm really proud of what me and my wife have done with them. Hopefully, they don't derail on the
I'm
on the
sure
way
they would not.
forward. But
Yeah.
definitely, that's the most challenging and rewarding thing, to see them grow and to see them achieve their goals and be happy and be loving with each other and with us and with their friends. And um, yeah, that's my main how did you say?
Pride, sense of pride
Yeah,
that you do. Okay.
yes.
That's wonderful, and I feel that, um, as you were talking, I can sense that in my own life as well, and probably you do the same. Having parents the way you're describing yourselves, right? That is the biggest blessing. That's the biggest protection. That is the biggest launch pad. Um, so it does concern sometimes when we look at kids who don't have them. So it's in fact, so while we're taking care of our own and we're thinking about them, I think if we continue to do this as humanity together, we'll be able to end up building a better world. um, what are your dreams for your kids? So you talked about happiness, right? But do you have like some substantial dreams that, this is what I want them to do, or this is what I want them to be, or how do I want them to grow up to be?
Oh, when I started this business, I was thinking on leaving them something they could, uh, when
Take
they
forward.
grew up, they could move forward. And but today, I don't know if it's uh, happy. Happy is the word. I want them to be happy. So if they want to work in this company, it's okay. If they
Yeah.
don't, whatever they do, uh, they have to do it with conviction. They have to do it with enthusiasm. I want them to be happy in whatever they do. To be happy, to be honest with themselves, to be honest with the people around them. Um, yeah, that's what I want for them. To be able to have a good night's sleep, um, to be happy, to enjoy their family, to enjoy what they have. If it's um, if it's small, if it's big, whatever, but for them to be happy. I know it sounds kind of romantic, tacky or whatever, but that's it.
Yeah, it does not. It actually sounds very
Yeah.
realistic.
But really deep inside me, yeah, I would like for them, like, to get this company and like
Yeah.
generations to go. And but if they don't, I'm not gonna be frustrated because of it.
That's That's very well said. I hear that from my families too. A lot of times, I feel that is the just basic sense of good people. Just be happy and life is good. Speaking of which, this is my probably second last question to you, and then we'll go to the final question of the hour. So, the question at this moment is, how do you define happiness for yourself? I've seen parents get a lot lost in happiness for their kids in their family. How do you define happiness for yourself? And how do you ensure that you are able to stay so calm? I've seen you in class, we've interacted, you're always very calm, very peaceful. How do you manage that in a world that's burning around? So give us some tips.
Uh, I learned the bad way. My couple of years ago, my body told me you need to, because I was uh, worrying too much, rushing too much. Um,
Oh,
there's there's this saying, don't preoccupy, occupy. I don't.
yeah.
Well, that's in Spanish. I don't know if it's. Um, and once I heard someone saying me, I was struggling with this issue, and he was like, take a deep breath. Does it have does it have a solution? And I was like, yeah. So why do you worry? And even if it didn't have a solution, why do you worry? Um,
Yeah.
so at the end, you need, yeah, if you have a problem, you need to uh, address it and try to do your best to solve it. And if you can't solve it because it's out of your hands, why the effort on grinding and worrying and making you feel bad about it? It doesn't mean to overlook things and don't uh, take responsibility for things. It's something different. Is to understand that some things you can handle with and you can solve them, but you need to have a process and understand that what's the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah.
Um, and with the concerns with all over how I managed to stay calm with the, let's look at it this way, getting not strictly into politics, but
Yeah.
we're having a difficult uh, period here in Colombia with the government and everything. And I started investing heavily, growing the business and doing everything. And many people were like, why are you doing that? There's so uncertainty, there's so instability. I was like, that's something I cannot fix.
Control.
I can,
Yeah.
I can fix what I can grow the business. I can make the business prosperous. I can invest that if all of this situation gets better, I'm gonna be well standing. But
Yeah.
if we go down the cliff, it's not gonna be just me; it's everyone. So it doesn't matter if I. It's better to uh, be proactive and do things. And if the things get worse, it's gonna get worse for everyone. So I don't know if
No,
I made myself clear.
you did actually, and that's wonderful advice. I suddenly started to reflect on it because a lot of times we are so focused on trying to manage the uncertainty that we forget that we should just keep investing in what feels certain, and that's all we can do. And you doing that in your business is because you know it. You know the logic of your business, you know what is happening, you know what it needs, and growing it will actually end up growing through the test of time. So and as they often talk about the stock markets too, things come, things go, uncertainties happen, uncertainties go, but that's how growth happens. It's slow, it's sometimes it has to go down to go really really up. So that actually puts a lot of things into perspective. So beautiful listening to that from you. Which brings me to the final words of wisdom that I want to, kind of extract out of this conversation. If you were to give the world, one message, or two three things, 1 to 3 things, what would you want to, what would you want them to have as a guiding principle of their life?
Um, I guess I'm too un non exciting because be good. Do don't 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 try to make shortcuts. Don't try to um, force things on others. Respect differences, um, and be honest to yourself. Um, that's the main thing, and um, that's acknowledging what you can and you can't do. And if you can't do it, it doesn't really mean you can't do it. It means you need help to do it. And it's not too bad to um, show yourself vulnerable, because that's when you're most able to understand that um, we are um, um, I'm sorry, I got lost in translation. Um, we are how do you say, with the wolves? We're a pack. We're
Yeah.
um and we need each other. So in order to, if you want to be good with yourself, if you want to be prosperous, you need to be able to rely on the people that surround you. And for that, the first thing is to be honest on yourself, and and acknowledge your vulnerabilities and your on it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm
No, no,
divagating.
I would love for you to say that in Spanish so that at least the people who know Spanish immediately take in, and I'm going to translate, and that'll be like a little celebration. I'll also learn something. So speak something in Spanish.
Eh, Básicamente, ser honestos contigo mismo, reconocer tus vulnerabilidades y saber que em, reconocer que no eres capaz de hacer algo no quiere decir en el fondo que no seas capaz. Sencillamente que necesitas de las personas de tu entorno que te ayuden, te soporten, y que lo principal, vuelvo a la primera palabra, es ser honesto contigo mismo y con la gente que te rodea. That's it.
Wow, that sounded so beautiful. What was that? That was that the message that you were talking to me about, or can you translate just a little bit, explain what
Yeah.
you said?
No, the same. Being honest to yourself, being
Yes,
truthful to the people that surround you. eh, it's you shouldn't be ashamed about being or showing yourself vulnerable. Um, and yeah, that's it. Always try and do good for you and for the people around you.
that's amazing. And I'm so glad I could listen to that beautiful Spanish in between. I'm going to learn Spanish now. Thank you so much for your time, Jaime. This was truly the impact interview. It's amazing to share stories of people who started with what looked like ordinary lives and are now very extraordinary. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And I will
No,
say bye
thank
to,
you, and thank you for thinking about me for this.
of course, who else? You were the quiet saint of the class, silently observing everything, and see, all the words of wisdom are now splitting out. So thank you so much for your time.
Okay, never mind.